Welcome to the Spirit of Truth video podcast. Joining me today is my good friend Jeanette Reed. She's the founder and head of the Christ Experiment. Hey, Jeanette.
Hey, Derek. How you doing?
All right. Well, stick around as we get to know Jeanette and all her work and ministry a lot better. Welcome back. So like I said, joining us today, I'm really excited about, is my good friend Jeanette Reed. And like I said, she's the head of Christ Experiment. And welcome, Jeanette. We're so lucky to have you.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, and thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, well, you know, I was blessed enough to get to meet you when you took a trip to Colorado some time back. And I am just always so thrilled to get to talk to somebody who is just saturated in the Holy Spirit and in Scripture and in a relationship with God and being an evangel. And this is what this show's all about. So especially the fact that you're fueled with the revelation of the Urantia Book, and it's just so exciting to watch. Just thanks again. And I was hoping maybe you could just give us a little introduction. Tell us about yourself real quick. And then we could get into maybe how you found the Urantia Book and other things like that.
Okay, well, I live in Southern California in Moore Park. By profession, I'm an attorney, which came about because of the revelation. Okay. I live with my son and his family. It's two young sons, so I live with my grandchildren, which I love, and just doing the ministry. It's like what I am. It's what I do.
Well, that's what I said. So a saturated soul, the Holy Spirit and Scripture and evangelism. And, you know, some people might look at that based on certain stereotypes that have come with someone who lives that way. But you're a shining example of someone who is joyful, good cheer, and really tries to uplift the teachings of Jesus. And I see that coming out. And maybe you could explain to me, it's obvious to me why that's important, but maybe a little bit of your background and where Urantia Book comes in for you. Maybe you could set us up if you have a spiritual background, religious background, something like that.
Sure. Well, I came from the religion of Jehovah's Witnesses as part of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society for about 20 years. I entered into the community as a teenager, 17, 18 years old, and I stuck with it for about 20 years. And there is this teaching. I'm going to try to be brief because this story can go on forever. In the Watchtower group, they have a major teaching that there's only 144,000 Christians throughout entire Christian history who are the sons of God, and they go to heaven and live in heaven. The rest of mankind lives forever on the earth. Okay. And they say because so much time has passed, there's only about, at this time, they claim there's about 8,000 that were still on the earth. So it's not likely that you're one of them, right?
Oh, darn.
Yeah. So I said, well, how would one know if they are of this class, the Son of God? And he says, well, God's Spirit bears witness with your spirit. So, after, I'm serious about my religion. I'm into it. I'm, reading my Bible daily. And I had the witness of the Spirit. I felt that the Spirit was telling me I'm a son of God. And so I went to them and told them, of course, you couldn't be, it's impossible, you're too young. At this time, I was about 35, between 35 and 40. You're probably delusional, or something like that. Now, the way that you know who is a son of God in the Watchtower organization is they partake of the bread and the wine on the annual, it's like comparable to the Remembrance Supper in the Watchtower organization. Okay. And so this year, 2016, or 1996, when they passed the wine, I sipped. When they passed the bread, I nipped, right? Okay. And it just caused such an uproar. And so after about a year, I called the elders to my home and I said, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. Wow. I said, and I explained to them all the reasons why, the problems I had with the Watchtower organization. And they agreed that those were problems. And they said, but wait on Jehovah. And I said, I will wait on Jehovah, but I'm going to wait outside. And when he cleans it up, let me know and I'll be back. Right. Oh, wow. And I invite the elders to come and visit me regularly to encourage me. It's what they do, what they're supposed to do. And and I never heard from him again.
Oh,
So,
man.
so I've never been. Usually, when you leave the Watchtower organization, you are disfellowshipped or disassociated or something like that. They left me alone. So I began my search for greater understanding and for what I call truth. And I went to different churches, and nothing really hit my spirit. And then I started to have this. It's hard to describe. I'm going to call it an inkling,
Okay.
where I was compelled to go to bookstores and find a book. And I went to the bookstores, and I'd find a book, I'd read it, and I'd say, this isn't it. And this urge or drive, whatever it was, would come back. And I'd go to the bookstore, and I think I'd found it. I'd find a book, I'd read it, and it wasn't it. And this went on. When I first thought about it, I said, this is like 3 years. I'm going to the bookstore every other day, buying a book, reading a book, and but it really was actually about 1.5 years.
Okay.
And every time I buy a book, I call my boyfriend and I say, I think I found that book, and he was with me, and he was reading. He says, I'm getting sick of you having me read all these books. So finally I had given up. I said, okay, I can't stop this urge. I have to go. So I'm going to go to the bookstore. I've read Christian religion, theology, theosophy, physics, metaphysics, quantum physics. I had done it all except the occult. So I said, well, if the truth is there, fine, whatever. Let me go look at it. So I go to the occult department in the library, and I open one of these books, witches, warlocks, that sort of thing. And immediately my spirit said, no. So I closed the book, and I went back over to the New Age section. And I'm really just sad. I'm depressed because I have this urge. I can't find this dang book. So I'm going through the aisle, I'm looking through the spines, read it, no good, not it, read it. I'm just going through.
Yeah.
Then I see this blue book. And it says Urantia. I'm like, what? I don't think I've seen that one. So I put it off the shelf. And what I normally do is I take the book and I'll sit on the floor and I'll just start reading a little bit of it. So I did my little routine. I got the book, sat on the floor, and I opened it up to the foreword. Because I saw the table of contents, it was interesting. But I read the first sentence, in the minds of the mortals of Urantia, that being the name of your planet. And my spirit just kind of stirred a little bit. And I read that whole page all the way down to them describing the universe, the local universe, so forth. And I just read that one page, and I sat there and I said, I think I really found it this time. This must be it. So I bought the book, ran home, told my boyfriend, I said, no, this time I really got it. You got to buy this book. This is really it. And he went and bought it, and he had the same feeling. And we were so excited that we had found this book. So I said, okay, I wasn't crazy. I really was being driven to find a book, because once I found the Urantia book, that drive stopped. That urge it's like I was satisfied finally.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like I said, 1997.
Okay.
And so, we being former Jehovah's Witnesses, we have a very ministry mindset. So we are thinking, well, who's telling people about this book? Where's the community? So we started Googling, and we found, the Urantia Foundation. But unfortunately, we entered at the time of a lot of the litigation when there was a controversy about somebody taking the fourth part and making it a separate book.
Okay, yeah, part 4. Yeah,
and it was just so much conflict that it was really a little bit distressing. And we were really disappointed that there's no community. There's what we do see, it's contention. And so we said, well, let's see what we can do. So we started telling people about the book, and people were looking at us like we're crazy. This is demons. It's, everything horrible. Right. So we said, okay, we got to figure out a way to promote the book. And I said, so at this point, I'm divorced. My son is about 10. My daughter's 14. I'm single, working full time. I said, nobody's going to pay attention to me. Nobody's going to give me any credibility. Who's going to listen to me? Who's going to talk to, hear what I have to say? So we said, I'm going to go to law school. I'm going to get a degree in law, and then I'll have credibility, and then people will listen to me, and maybe I can say something, I'll have credibility.
Wow.
And so I had no undergraduate, but through a series of really unusual coincidences, I wound up in law school that next year, that next fall. And I went to law school for 4 years, part-time in the evenings with my children. I finished like second in my class, and I passed the bar. And the month later, I had started my own law firm. So now I'm sitting in this law firm. I'm ready to do all kind of religious defense, because that's what drove me to do it, because I saw constitutional law. I'm like, oh, First Amendment, yeah, I'll do that kind of law. And I had been a paralegal for 25 years, so I'm familiar with the field of law. No religious cases came through the door. Surprisingly, I was surprised, I was shocked.
Wow.
But I got a lot of real estate, so that's what I do. I do real estate litigation. But I'm still looking for ways to promote the Urantia book. In law school, I was on law review, and I wrote my law review article on clergy malpractice. And I use a lot of the concepts in the Urantia book in terms of how you deal with clergy malpractice. So this is like 2004 now. So for the next 7-8 years, I'm trying stuff that's not working. And then one day, my husband and I were saying, like, why don't we just talk about sonship and use the Urantia book to explain it? So we started a website, anointedjw.org, designed to Jehovah's Witnesses to show them from the Bible that they are all sons of God. And we used the reasoning in the Urantia book. And the response we got was incredible. People were saying, where'd you get this understanding, this depth of, perception? And we were really excited, surprised, completely surprised. So I wind up writing probably about 200 or 300 articles, strictly based on the Bible, but infused with Urantia concepts. And that worked. And these people are reading it. They're seeing the Bible as the authority. And so it's not any kind of, heresy, but it really is elevated. Wow. And we affected thousands, millions of people through this ministry. First, it was just Jehovah's Witnesses, and then it spread out to other Christians, other Christian communities. And my husband was sort of like a pastor at one of these recovery facilities. Uh-huh. And so he would conduct classes, and he would use our articles in the classes. And he had a really, I don't know if it's called high or low recidivism rate. In other words, the recovering people, drug, alcohol, whatever the issue was, who were in his classes didn't return. They left with the spirit of sonship, and they got their lives together, and we're doing really great.
Wow, so that's awesome.
So after, and we said, you know what? If we can get Jehovah's Witnesses to understand this revelation, we will have an army of real teachers and preachers, because these people know what they're doing. They have an excellent a ministry framework. Okay. They just need the truth in that, right? They need the real message of Jesus, and they would be phenomenal. So we said, we're going to just introduce them to the Urantia book gradually and see, let them know that, hey, we can do this ministry, but let's do it with some real facts. And so after about, I want to say 3 years, we decided to start the Christ Adventure.
Christ Adventure.
No, okay. I'm sorry, the Christ Experiment.
Experiment. Oh, right. Which is what's going on now. Which it is an adventure, I will say.
There is a site that we started about a year ago, the Christ Adventure. I'll tell you about that in a minute. Okay. So the Christ Experience. And the idea was to slowly introduce our audience to the Urantia book. And we started with a few experiments. And then we had one experiment, number 6, which was a new revelation as a question. Could there be such a thing? And we walked them through the Bible to the Urantia book. And we sat back, like, oh my God, what's going to happen to our audience now? We might have just lost everybody. The responses we got were amazing, phenomenal. I think there's thousands of new readers of the Urantia book because of that ministry. And we found the key to a successful ministry of the Urantia book. And that's what we did.
Wow. Yeah, I'm just letting you land the plane here, because that was a big trip you just took us through. But I want to congratulate you on following the Spirit and leading.
Thank you.
It's really something, that story that you talked about, being led to get a law degree. That's not something that you do that late in life always, Not that was that late in life,
40.
but still.
I was 40 when I started law school, yeah.
Wow.
And it was probably the most fun thing I've ever done. And I'm in the class with these people who are throwing up, they're sick, it's stressed out because of it. I'm like, this stuff is easy. This stuff is fun. I enjoyed my
Wow.
time in law school, but because I had my mind set on religious freedoms, and I was really motivated to finish the course.
Wow. Well,
And
I
maybe
see the same. I see the same drive then in these articles that you wrote, and then I don't know, people who go to the Christ Experiment. There is a lot of information, content to use with illustrations that feed from the Bible or take from the Bible, but also then elaborate greater. It's like using the Bible as this little structure, but then really, or scaffolding, and then really building upon that. And I really appreciate that, man, because it's like, it shows respect to the work of the writers of the Urantia book, because I feel like that's what they were doing by all of the inclusion of the prophets and inclusion of our history, that you see the evolution of monotheism into a loving, living Father, and how that personal relationship is then culminated in Jesus's life as the expression. And I just to see that build of evolution and revelation working with evolution and not revolution type of thing.
that's the key. We also have the Christ Experiments School of Evangelists, which we're changing the name to School of Ambassadors.
Okay.
But in this school, one of the techniques we teach is called bridging. Bridging is beginning where your audience is, whatever their ideology, and then you sort of walk them to the Urantia Book. And this is what we believe Michael or Jesus did when he introduced the fourth revelation. He built on the third revelation, which was, held by the Jewish group, Jewish people. And the Jewish group built on Melchizedek. Melchizedek built on Adam and Eve. So nothing came as a revolution, a true revolution. Every revelation was built upon the prior. And it's a bridging from the one. And those who kept the most information were those who were the keepers of the prior revelation. That's what we deal with Christianity primarily. Talk to all people. But the easiest and the most productive techniques that a group of people to reach, I think, are Christians. Although some people think that's tough. It really is it's an art to it. It's a bridging. It's bridging. And we also have the term volumizing, where we're taking what their little simple meal and just filling it with vegetables and nutrition, volumizing this spiritual meal.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, there's a lot there. One thing that I always think of, that I reflect on, growing up Roman Catholic, is that the history of the Catholic Church, we didn't really talk about too much. We talked more about Old Testament history, and like you were talking about, more Jewish history. And so I think that there would maybe be more appreciation for Christianity if they really realized the heroism involved in creating it, And then we see then modern day evangelism, and maybe we could talk a little bit about that, of how you see that unfolding now, and how you're training people, and with outreach, with Urantia Book. I do a lot of Urantia Book outreach. That's kind of my evangelism, but also my evangelism of the gospel, that we're all loving children, love children of God, so go forth and act accordingly. But still, maybe you could give us some tips on how you're bridging that gap with Christianity, because it's obvious that the Revelators bridge the gap with Christianity, and it's not perhaps trending to do that these days. But if you could give us some insight on personal truths, fundamental truths with the personal relationship with God, and how you've done that and shared that.
Okay, well, first, we have a lot of techniques that we teach in our school. Which are really, they're not our techniques. These are the things Jesus did. We examine what he did. We articulate his techniques, and we teach them in our school. One of the things that we emphasize is that in our evangelism work, we evangelize, but we don't proselytize. So that's different. We're not trying to change anybody's religion or trying to, get followers. We are just trying to uplift their spirituality. Wherever they are spiritually, we want to help them live up to their higher ideals. That's really what evangelizing in our context is. But we know that it sort of has a negative context. That's why we're changing the name to School of Ambassadors. But so one of the things is we give the good news, we don't proselytize. Second, one of Jesus' most important methods, techniques was never take away, only add to. So we show you how to complement and enhance whatever they believe. And we show you how not to take away. Sometimes we don't know what that means, don't take away. And we don't know how to give a truth or give a greater understanding without taking away.
Well, give us some insight.
Okay,
Give
let's
us some
give me an
insight.
example. I'll give you Jesus' example. When he was asked about Jonah and the whale. Remember that? He didn't take away the guy's story and what he believed because he understood this was important to his faith. So he added a new perspective. We're adding to, right? And it's like leaven. So it's going to ferment the whole lump. And this is how you do it. You put in the truth and let the truth, crowd out the error. That's what Jesus did with the story of Jonah. And so in the same way, we call the Doctrine of Anor, the principle or the technique of and. So if somebody says something that may not be accurate, like, I don't know, give me something that Christians think that it's not accurate.
Jesus died for your sins and you owe him some blood.
Yeah. You would say, and there's something else. He brought the knowledge of that we are sons of God and brothers to one another. And then we emphasize that. We say, and let me give you an additional thought on that subject. And you spend your time building up this new idea and it crowds out that error. It becomes irrelevant, right? And we do that. It's called the technique of and. You just add to somebody's teaching. You never say, no, that's not right because that's crazy. We never do that. Jesus never did it. If we're going to be ambassadors of his ministry, of his kingdom, of his teachings, we do what he did. We don't judge one another. We don't go around correcting doctrines. We just add new ideas.
Amen.
The spirit of truth and the truth itself ferment the lump and crowd out the air.
I love that little parable of, putting in, like, I make cider sometimes and you have to ferment the juice. And so you add yeast and that really transforms this juice into a spirit, right? And, like leaven that you add to the dough, it's the same thing, that it's new, it's transformed, it's something different after the spirit does its work. And so I like that analogy of you kind of, just put in the dough, put in the leaven, put the leaven in the dough, put in the yeast, and let the spirit of truth do the work with the individual.
And that's what makes it a joy, because you're not thinking, I have to change their minds, I have to do something. All you got to do is tell the good news and let the spirit of truth do the work. It's a very carefree kind of a ministry, and it feels good. There's no pressure to it. And I think that the word evangelizing puts a really bad taste in the mouths of some. And that's why we have changed it to ambassadors. Well,
have you noticed that because you're kind of alone here in the Urantia community as far as bridging these gaps, because from my experience, the Urantia community tends to come straight from the Urantia Book, and they don't maybe have a background in organized religions. Perhaps some do, and they've thrown it out. But it's still almost like an intellectual disconnect and a cultural embarrassment, fear of ridicule, of connecting with these other groups. Even though there's a movement towards, I would say, interfaith movement, there isn't a movement for standing on the revelation as it is, and then building on as the revelators were doing, and being that demonstration of builders of the kingdom.
That is so important, because I look at, a lot of the interfaith movements and actions in the community, and they put Michael on the same plane.
Like an ascendant master or something.
Yeah. And nobody's standing for Michael. No one's standing for Jesus, for the true, authentic Jesus.
Yeah.
We, the Buddhists stand for Buddha. They have no problem talking about Buddha. The Muslims have no problem talking about Muhammad. What is with us? Why do we have a problem with Jesus? Right? That's not fair. And I understand that there are some connotations about Jesus that are not good, not productive, not accurate. But that doesn't mean we throw him away, throw out the baby with bathwater. We get rid of the bathwater, drain the swamp, right? And, keep what's good. Keep Jesus. He's the good part. Right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I always see it. It's kind of like this analogy. Like I was blessed with an experience one time when I was at work that with Paula. You know Paula. We all love Paula.
Yeah.
Was that one of the neighbors' houses was on fire? It was burning down, and I was at work and I noticed it. And I ran in the house and helped get the mom and the two kids out of there, right? And I had this like insane spiritual experience between the tears later that night after I was helping these kids. Is like that's kind of what angels deal with when they're dealing with revelations, because they don't really last, like intact. The buildings don't last intact. The scripture doesn't always last intact. It gets rewritten, it gets rewrote, whatever, it gets destroyed. But the personalities are what's so important, that the angels can then take out and really sort them so that they can really maximize the work that the angels need to do and what they've committed themselves to doing, consecrated. So that was kind of my lesson, and that's kind of what I see. And I kind of see like that, where you're seeing this building kind of burning, but you're also staying cool and seeing, okay, how can we really maximize the intelligent parts that are going to be left? And I always have this vision of, organized religions or whatever old institutions of authority, intellectual authority of religions burning down, but Jesus is standing strong. Like that's, like the phoenix, Jesus is still there. That's the anchor. That's the lighthouse. That's what every human responds to, is his teachings deep down.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the burning down of the churches.
It was a metaphor. It was a metaphor, by
No,
the way.
I know it's a metaphor.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't believe the idea that churches will be done away with, or that, that will be done away are some of the philosophies of it, and people find new ways of expressing it, which we're already doing, but where they're still stuck in these, in these structures, but that they're changing. People are changing. There's a concept that, the nuns.
Yeah, the nuns, non-affiliated. Yeah.
They're growing, and people see that. I'm going to say non-readers see that, and they fear for religion. Like, oh, and then some atheists or some secular-minded people are saying, good, we're getting rid of religion. But what's really happening is spiritual freedom is growing. That's what's happening. People are being free to serve God the way they want to, without a filter, without having to go through some man, without having to adopt an interpretation that's not consistent with their own belief system. They are now free to find God on their own terms. That's what's happening with the nuns. And so when you understand that where spirituality is growing, then you can see how you don't have to tear down the churches. Just need a little adjustment here and there. It's, as the Urantia Book says, that truth is cocooning, right? It's there. You just may need to readjust some things so that it can fully blossom or metamorphose.
Well, I appreciate that. And, as you call it, an ambassador, it's also kind of almost like a counselor, or, my mom used to have a position called patient navigation, and where you help the individual get the proper care that they needed. And so here there's spiritual work and evangelical work that needs to be done. And then you're kind of motivating them to see it that way. It's like getting a shift in the perspective. Here, if I could just move this out of the way, maybe you could now, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what I get from you. And I appreciate
that's
that.
What we try to do. We have another concept in our school called the Emmanuels, right? The Emmanuel concept. In the universe, Emmanuel's from paradise, is representative of the Father in the local universe. And he's there to advise, counsel when asked. And if his advice or counsel is rejected, well, he retreats back to paradise. No harm, no foul. In the same way, when we go into churches or speak with religious people, we offer our concepts when asked. We try to be there as a presence of Jesus in a church, in a congregation, see what we can do to help them. But if they reject us, we just move on to another church, And there's a technique to uplifting churches. It's not that simple. We teach a process. But the point is that we, as ambassadors, we kind of key into that pattern of Emmanuel, that he's there to represent the presence of the universal Father, but he's not there to tell you what to do, and not there to correct you. It's just to offer the advice and the upliftment when asked. So that's what we encourage in terms when you're going out into religious settings.
Well, I appreciate that, waiting to be asked, or at least voluntarily volunteering. I often reflect on, maybe you could give us some insight on the experience and understanding of intellectually believing in these truths versus when there's something about your life that it's wholly dominated and faith led by spirit.
I
You
think
know
you're
what I
talking
mean?
about the difference between belief and faith.
Sure.
You're believing a bunch of facts, but you're not having faith in truth.
Mm.
I describe the difference between truth and faith, or facts and truth, in this way. Let's say you were to describe an orange. Let me say something real quick here. You keep disappearing on me, and I don't know where to look.
Hi. Just keep looking.
Okay. All right. So you have illustration of an orange. Someone wants to know the truth about an orange. Well, a scholar would tell you, well, it's spherical. It has a bumpy rind. It's when you peel it back, there's juice inside of it with these membranes, and it's tart. Those are the facts about the orange. The truth is achieved by tasting, biting into that orange, and you say, "Oh wow, now I get it. I know what an orange is."
Mm-hmm.
It's the same way with music. You can read music on a staff. You can point out the keys on the keyboard, but until you hit that key and hear that note, you really don't know the truth about that note. And so in many ways, a lot of people are scholars, and they have all the facts about this thing that they're talking about, but they don't know the truth of it because they haven't experienced it. They haven't done what Jesus did, right? They haven't practiced the religion of Jesus as opposed to a religion about Jesus. And we do the same thing with the book. We preach about the book, but we don't preach of the book. In other words, what is the book asking me to do? Do that. Right? And I think that the real engine in what we are supposed to do with the book is found in 195, right? Where the midwayers compile, they go through the history of religion from Jesus' time he left to our modern day, and they explain what needs to be done. That's the real motivation. Until we get into that part of the book and start living the life that Jesus lived, we're just going to be academics about it. We're going to talk about the book. We're going to have religion about Jesus and about Mike and about the Father. But until we do it and act in faith, well, we really don't know what we're talking about. We're just believers. And belief to me is another word for dead faith, right? Faith that does have no works to
Wow.
show its value. It's just, I believe. And believing is so simple. Faith is the challenge.
I agree. Thank you so much for putting it that way. I remember sharing with other Christians at the Wild Goose Festival the difference of faith and belief, and how, because I really sense that the younger generation is feeling a stir, especially in the spiritual communities, and instead of going on this adventure, like you say about the adventure of Jesus, like fully taking on that religious life of Jesus, they're going towards a political answer. And maybe you could give us insight on this, because you're taking this legal aspect of religious freedom, but then there's also these like civil laws, and where that manifests itself in the whole interplay between religious authority, and then you can see the youth kind of wanting to do something instead of coming forward for the Jesus dynamic religion. It's kind of something that's more intellectual, I felt. So that's why it's really important to share the difference between faith and belief.
Yeah, and when you read that portion in 195 about the young people, it says when they are, I'm not sure the exact wording, but when they are presented with the master's actual plan, they will take on his plan and carry it throughout this great adventure. I don't remember the exact phrase. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
They will go all the way to this great adventure.
Yeah, let's take it all the way. Yeah.
Right, but that's when they are presented with Michael's plan, the master's plan, not just concepts in general around the world, social justice. That's not what it's talking about. It's talking about teaching our young people the master's plan, the master's objective. And that's what will take them or cause them to adopt it and go all the way through this great adventure. And that's why we started the website, thechristadventure.org. It's still in development, but the idea is to show you practically how it is that we live the Christ adventure, the adventure
Awesome.
and what we're supposed to do. It's in development. It's been a little slow going. We had a few obstacles, and especially with this COVID shutdown.
Yeah.
It's been a little bit of a drawback, but we hope to we hope that this particular ministry will attract young people and show them practically, what do we do? We meet so many Urantia Book readers, or we get communication from so many Urantia Book readers who just don't know what to do. They want to do something, but they don't have a clue what to do.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're hoping to show, our ideas. And we do that in our school, of course, but also in this new ministry, the Christ Adventure. So it may take us another 6 months to get it ready to be presented, but it's coming. It's a coming.
Oh, man, that's awesome. I love having those projects that you're working on. And also the fact that you're focusing on youth. You see, every time I see you always ask me if I'm married or if I got kids, and and all my friends, you're asking the same thing. And it's cute.
Why?
It's
but why
cute.
do I ask you? Why do I ask you?
Because you know that I'm of good stock. No, just kidding. Just
Really?
kidding.
No, because
Well,
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say it's flattering, and I appreciate it.
Well, yeah, that's one thing, but there's a bigger thing. Sometimes I hear Urantia Book readers talk about how we don't have the youth in our community. Well, where do the youth come from? They're born. We're not having babies in this community. You look at the rapid growth of the Muslims and the Mormons. They're having babies, right? So one of the reasons we don't have a nice community of young people is because we're just not having babies. And I just hope that the young people hook up, find you a mate, get married and have some babies and teach these children the Urantia teachings. And now what happens is there are some Urantia babies who've grown up in the community, but they're few and far between. What they need is that community of young, playmates who are raising this idea. If we want a real strong community. So to all of you young people out there, get married and have babies. And that's how we develop a youth community.
So I'm sure you're developing the Urantia dating website app now.
No, that's not our wheelhouse. But we will encourage anybody who asks us. I think that's really important. It's actually part of, to me, the Adam and Eve edict. Be fruitful, fill the earth. Right? They got short-circuited in their plans.
Right.
We can carry it on. We can carry it out. Filling the earth with these little people who love Michael and who learn the truth about our universe and our origin, our destiny, our history, and so forth.
Origin, history, destiny, baby.
There you go. It's in the wrong order. But if we did that, I don't think that we would have this concern that we have now about a lack of young people. But we don't have to. The next generation doesn't have to repeat the error.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a pretty inside perspective to see second generationers or older first generation readers and their kids not reading it or not being involved.
Community.
Yeah, there's no community. There's also I see there's been a challenge of developing culture with continuity and cohesion, and I think it kind of stems back to what we were first talking about of the lack of understanding and maybe the lack of faith in leading with Jesus or with other, like what the revelators were doing, that there's such a fear of organized religion that there's a paralysis of action towards a demonstration of lived religion.
That's true. Baby with bathwater, right? And a lot of the people in the Urantia community are not churched, right? They don't have that history of how you have a spiritual community.
Sure. They
have the history of having an intellectual community, and that's what they create. And so there is something that religious people can bring to the community. For us, we bring ministry. We bring ministry techniques. It's what Jehovah's Witnesses did. It's what we know. We bring it to the community, even though we've left that behind. And likewise, other religious groups can bring their community, the way that they, how did Angie put it? The way they, that project she has.
Gather? How they gather?
Yeah, they can know how use these techniques that have been very successful in binding a church and bring these concepts into the community.
I love that. So Bruce Lee.
Go ahead.
Use what's effective. And I really love it. And I love it that you're presenting it in my mind, I'm getting a picture where it's everyone's volunteering to come forward to bring their skills, talents, abilities, learned things from their ministry, churches, religions, experience, but lifting up the Urantia Book or lifting up truth, at least revelation, and adding to, not kind of saying, okay, well, we can't do this because that's kind of Christian. We can't do that because that's kind of Muslim. It's more saying, ooh, the Muslims are really good about how they do that. Oh man, the Christians, they're down to something right there. Let's
Why
take
reinvent the wheel,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah, and you're not alone with that. And personally, I will say that, you know, the ministerial arm of the Urantia movement isn't quite there. I don't believe that I see lots of focused ministry as a real organized thing, you know,
We're
other
trying to
than
do
what
that. We're trying to
individuals.
create that in this
Yeah.
degree. And we've had 2 graduating classes, so there's probably 25, something like that. We've only been doing it for about a year.
That's so cool.
But we hope to show, you know, like I said, we bring this to the community, and we want to give it. We want to give these techniques to the community. And there, like I said, there's other gifts that will be brought from other communities. We just need to find a way to bring us all together under one sort of umbrella with our own individuality, you know, unity without uniformity, but allow us to connect with one another and to, you know, feed off of one another and benefit from what the others bring to the community. We need a little bit more of that as well.
Well, I know you're very interested in connecting people, as far as like other believers, other readers, other evangelists. How do you kind of recommend that some people who feel unaffiliated maybe can get connected?
Oh, that's a good question. Because we've tried to take a hands-off approach in terms of trying to get a following. We don't want a following. We want to create leaders who can create a community, right? So that's been a little bit of a challenge. But one thing we do, all of our graduates, we encourage them to get involved in the study group and to, you know, there's an opportunity to practice leadership skills and to, you know, some people don't really see why they go to a study group. Why? I had that question for many years. Why am I here? I can read the book at home. What's it about? But there's something that we can do in our study groups to make it more community, make it more of a community by taking that material and applying it personally. You know, using it as a way for us to be closer together. Not just we're all smart, we all get it, you know, but not you know, adoring Jesus, but imitating Jesus, you know, doing what he did, living our lives with the same spirit that he lived his life. And when we come into a study group with that spirit, we can infect the group. Mm-hmm. And I use infect in a positive.
Well, it makes me think about how, you know, you practice, try to bring in some form of ritual or some kind of sacrament, some kind of honoring of the moment that you can gather around, like the Last Supper and things like that.
We do that too. We encourage an annual commemoration of the Remembrance Supper on April 16th of every year. We've been doing it for about 5 years, and every year we get a few more readers that do it. And we don't do it as a, you know, like with a center of it and you come to us to do this. We just encourage people in your family groups, just take this night and honor Michael. You know, we do it all the time. It's one thing we hear, well, we do it all the time. Whenever we get together, we partake. I said, well, that's cool. Why don't we do it, though, as a united family on that one night as an anniversary? And think of it this way. The celestial family is looking down at this planet, the world of the cross. They're very concerned with what's going on here. Imagine what they see on a night when thousands, hundreds of thousands of individuals are honoring Michael that same day, that same evening. Can you see those lights of the world just lighting up the planet? Yeah, I feel that way on that night. I wonder how many angelic beings are looking down and saying, all right.
More lights than last year, guys. Look, the lights are growing.
Yeah, and I think that's one way of just making a powerful statement on the world of the cross, if we did it together unitedly. And I was hoping one of our objectives is to make this a Urantia tradition. Okay. This is what we do. You know, we may have other ways that we express our beliefs and we expound the book and understand the book and relate to the book. But on this night, can we do this? This is the only thing he asked of us. One religious celebration. And I will do the birthday every year. We're gung-ho about the birthday. Can we do the Remembrance Supper? Can we do the one he didn't ask for the birthday celebration, but he did ask for the Remembrance Supper. Can we do that? That's what we're hoping to encourage. And we do it every year. Each year gets a little bit bigger, but we're hoping it can be a Urantia tradition, and maybe one of the larger organizations that have a bigger ear, have the ear of more Urantia Book readers would promote it. And that's one way of getting really united with our brothers and sisters. When we unite through Michael and through the Spirit of Truth, we're uniting with one another.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. The network growing, my whole concept of Urantia Book Network. And I've had that same vision of, little points of light lighting up all over the world where they're broadcasting the love of the Father and, the family of all of us. And that's part of my goal is to get those lights up in numbers.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you talking about that. I wonder now, since you have this Last Supper concept, and it kind of harks on group worship a little bit for me, that what I think about. Now, there's remembrance and then there's group worship, but the reason why I bring up group worship is because another thing that I don't feel really engaged in Urantia community is active worship, active group worship, other than on my own individual self or maybe when I pray with others. And I was wondering how you foresee that evolving in the future.
Well, I wonder what you mean when you say group worship, because, to me, worship is a silent commune with the Father. When Jesus went away to have his little conversation with the Father, right? That to me is worship. But, prayer, that's different. Group goal setting, that's different. Seeking help and encouragement. We can get help and encouragement from our midwayer family, from our angelic family, our seraphim. So we can ask them in a kind of a prayer context for encouragement. Nudge me, bring somebody into my path. So there's a lot of things that are maybe confused with worship. When I think of group worship, I think of, the Urantia Book talks about this, the conductors of worship, and you can imagine this, this crescendo, this ecstasy of just I would say maybe a melodic tone, and they're just kind of silently grooving with the Spirit. Right? That's what I think of group worship, but maybe you have something else in mind. I don't really know how to.
Well, yeah, I guess because I come from like a Catholic background, we talk about worship yeah, I am the same with you, where it's a silent culmination of giving up, a reverential giving up to the Father, that which all I have, and everyone choosing to do that where they're in the same environment. Ideally, that's where you have good leadership in the sermon or the homily, and they invite each other, all of us, to let us connect now with the Father of all, and let our hearts be filled in His too.
Don't we do that? I think of the study groups I've been in. They open with that, few moments of prayer.
Well, it's probably all personal. Maybe your study. I can imagine your study group probably gets down like that.
Well, we have an interesting little group. What we do, but I don't see group worship lasting more than 10, 15 minutes.
Right.
So I wonder, is there something else that we're talking about?
Yeah, obviously gathering, the social element that is of fellow believers coming together, and that it doesn't then go too far and let the intellectual eclipse the spirit.
Yeah. I think what it really is for me is, so many thoughts are going through my head right now. The concept where we take everlasting life for granted. That don't stress, don't spend all this time in personal development. Serve your brothers. And that is how you develop your person, right? So if we are, if we look at it that way, when we get together in groups, maybe the purpose is to find ways to encourage each other to do things for other people.
Yeah, support.
Group projects to help other people, to teach, to preach, to uplift. Maybe that's why we get together, not to just be there in the room, but to encourage each other to do something, have a project, have a goal for that group, and then show up and pursue the goal together. I think that's the way, to me, revelatory religion will be practiced. It will be more goal oriented than sitting here listening to a lecture or, rehashing old stories. It will be doing something. We have a universe of doers, a celestial family of doers. They have goals and objectives. They have tasks, and they accomplish those tasks. Why don't we? Why don't we see our spirituality as an objective? We say, what is Michael's agenda? What does he want? Well, we learned that all creator sons, they have the agenda of creating this universe and bringing it to perfection, creating in time and space what the Father has done in eternity. That's the objective. And all these other things are ways to get that accomplished. Can we help Michael with his objective? What can we do to help him make at least this planet, help bring it to perfection? If we thought it in terms of that kind of a long view, in terms of what we do and how we plan and why we do what we do, I think now we're talking about some real change. If we jump on Michael's agenda, really figure it out, and then do something that furthers Michael's agenda. Yeah. Right? Now our celestial family can get behind that 100%. The faithful ones who have never gone astray, they have one objective, and that is to serve Michael and accomplish his objective. Why can't we have the same mindset?
Right. Yeah, I get that. And I wonder, one of the things that I've tried to do and even given presentations about is looking at Jesus as actually like a quarterback or a coach who's given a play to his team. And after Pentecost, here's a whole team that has come down here with Seraphic Planetary Government and a host of others that are on board with this game plan, And so we have our playbook, ready, break, like get out there and do it. But not everybody is at that. Not everyone is going to be thinking, I need to go out here and change the world. Not everyone's like that. And that's understandable. And that's where there becomes kind of, you could see why there's apostles and disciples and believers and things like that.
But even think of the Alphaeus twins, right? They weren't going to be really effective in the outreach ministry, but they continue to live lives that encouraged other people. And as disciples, we can still demonstrate Michael in our lives, even if we're not one of those go-getters, world changers. We still can be that, we can be supporters of those who do it. Be there for them. Every faithful being on our planet, around our planet, wants us to move forward and understands that as the sons of God, we are the dynamic movers, and the celestial family are the daughters who just support us. So if there's going to be change, we have to do it. And so I think we have to kind of readjust our thinking and remember that we are sons of God, that we are the dynamic creators and actors and doers, and do what we can in our environment. I think of our seraphim. Some seraphim are probably just twiddling their thumbs,
waiting for someone to do something.
Mortals aren't always reading, and okay, he understands the Trinity Fathers, whatever, but they're waiting. And once we make a move, now they can push that move. They know where we're going, and they can do something for us. I think a lot of them are just frustrated.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, Paul and I would joke about it because one time I put together a program built on that of signing up with the Seraphic Planetary Government based on their 12 disciplines and where you see your skills and God-given abilities in, and how you can then effectively serve that way in that discipline. And we're always saying, we're like, dude, I can guarantee that the angels are sitting in the back of the room with a pad and a paper, just like waiting to sign people up, just waiting for people to just get on board. Now, whether the level of consecration is serious for you or not, that's for you to go through. I see yours, and you're fully consecrated. Maybe you could share with us the experience of when you're like, okay, angels, it's time to get down. Let's do this. I'm committed.
Rephrase your question.
Okay. When did you consecrate yourself to this work?
Oh, wow. Well, it's interesting. As a former Jehovah's Witness, I was committed to preaching the good news, so that's just who I've been most of my adult life. From 17 to 35 is what I did. So it's pretty much ingrained in me. And so when I got this new revelation, it's just a way of doing what I've always done. And, it happens because it has been my pattern, but it's got to start somewhere. If you want that kind of a lifestyle, or you want to be more ministry oriented, it begins with the first step. And you're not going to be a super evangelist on day one, but through consistency. And really, I don't see a reason to be here other than to work for Michael. I don't see a point here. I don't see I'm not moved to pursue anything else. I really want to see Michael achieve his objective. I want him to hand to the Father a perfect universe. And I want to do what I can do here and tell me when I get to the mansion worlds and I get to Jerusalem, I get to South, I'm gonna do the same thing. Whatever I can do to work with Michael to help him get done what he wants done.
Right.
And it's just, you got to start somewhere. You start small. Start just being a friendly person in your community. Smile to people. Ask them how they're doing. Do you know how many people don't talk to people? Nobody asks them how they're doing. Nobody listens to them. Do you know how important just listening to another person is? I've had conversations and go on for an hour, and I've said maybe 7 words, and they just talk. At the end of the conversation, we had such a great conversation. You're such a great, we're so close. We're now best friends, right? Because this person never had a chance to talk, to express themselves. That is ministry. That is allowing your brother to do something he needs to do. He needs to, or she needs to, unburden herself.
Yeah.
Just being a good listener is being a good minister. There's so many ways that we can serve other people without, we think of going to a food line, passing out, water or blankets, or that's what we think of in serving our brothers. But it's really, some people just need to be heard. And if you are willing to listen, that's service.
Amen.
And people, a lot of people can figure out their own solutions, but they've got to try to articulate it. It's the articulation that causes that, that thinking process where you find your solutions. But if nobody's listening to them and they're not inclined to speak out loud and talk to themselves, and they're not journalers, not writing their journals, they need somebody to listen to them. That's ministry.
It is. It's something that I'm blessed enough to get to do at my work. A lot of people call and ask about the Urantia Book, and then, you get to do some ministry, and they're so thankful that there's a human voice on the other end there that they could confide in and stuff like that. So.
And touch.
Yeah.
Some people go through their lives or go through many years of never being touched by another human being. Wow. On the shoulder, a hug. It's just amazing how isolated some people are, and how simple it is to remedy those problems. You can be in an argument and you just touch the arm of the person you're arguing with, and somehow the tipper drops. Something about human touch. We are meant to help one another. We're social. We're meant to be, we are united. We are a family, and we need to behave that way. It's one thing that Gatan Charlan, I love that name. He said to me once, he said to the group, he said, he doesn't think that every man is my brother, right? He thinks I'm the brother to every man. Isn't that pretty beautiful? He didn't quite put it like that, but that's the way I interpreted it. That, I'm not going to worry about who's my brother. I'm going to make sure that I'm the brother or the sister to the rest, everybody I'm in community with, right?
I love that. That reminds me of what my grandfather used to say, is like, don't treat, or he would say, treat people like a gentleman, not because they are, but because you are.
Because you are. Wow. I like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who people are. You do you. You be the person that you're supposed to be, and things seem to work out.
Amen. That's nice. That's good spirit that comes with that. So I kind of just want to leave you on one last question here. Can you explain a concept to me that I know that a lot of people kind of struggle with this, and maybe you have good insight on it, and that's just what you call saved sonship with God and what that means?
Sonship with God.
Yeah.
Sonship with God. That's a long, how much time do I have here?
As long as you need.
Sonship with God is the key to everything. Sonship with God is the key to spiritual freedom. Because when you realize you are a son of God, you're no longer beholden to men. You don't need approval of men. Sonship with God is not, Don and I were talking about this, it is not a salve that you apply to soothe your wounds, to soothe your troubles. Sonship is the cure. Sonship removes the inflammation. If you can imagine that your Father is the creator, upholder of everything in existence, what are you worried about? You know, and I was telling Don, I said, when you have problems, a son doesn't go to God and say, oh, help me. Oh, no, everything's so terrible. Help me, God. The son doesn't do that. A son says, Father, here's the problem. What's our plan? Right. What are we going to do about this? Okay, we're looking for, I know you got a plan here. What's the plan? And that's my question. When I'm faced with some kind of problem, this, it's not good or looks pretty bad, I'll stop and I'll say, okay, Father, what's the plan? And I've got a mental readiness to pursue the plan, right? That's what sonship should do to us. We shouldn't be overcome by our problems for any length of time. Of course, we're going to be, if something hits us and we're going to have an immediate reaction, but we're supposed to recover pretty quickly. Sonship is, the implications of sonship are phenomenal. When you understand you're a son of God, you know that there's a whole universe out there. It's not just you. We're not just some accident, a good germ that procreated and somehow is here. There's a family. If there's a family, I think my Father wants to see me. I think he wants to get to know me. I think I want to get to know him. And if we're brothers and sisters, how can you make me feel inferior? How can I can't allow that. You can do whatever you want to do, and all that's going to do is reveal who you are. As far as me, I'm a son of God. I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah. Being in this world, but not of it, almost. Such
Sonship
liberation.
Is so powerful. It's to me, wow. I've written so many articles on sonship and the power of sonship. In fact, I'll just mention this. One of our websites is faithsonsofgod.org, which is basically our library of all these couple hundred articles that I've written, where I infuse biblical teachings with the Urantia Book. Wow. And I hope that, at least the intent is that these articles empower you as a son of God. It's not a concept, it's a reality. And it has real impact. It has real impact. And if we find ourselves in the, for long-term depressed state, that sonship isn't appreciated yet. We need to rekindle a realization of what it means, who you are. Every created being is not a son of God. We're not sons of God because he created us, because there's so many that are not sons of God. The daughters of God, right? The daughters of the infinite spirit, they're not sons of God. There are many created beings in the heavens who are not sons of God. There are other beings who are son infused or spirit infused. We're father infused. So we have a unique position. And the entire universe is set up for us, for our ascension plan. Come on. Right? Sonship gives you self-worth. I'm going to stop with.
No, that's good. You remind me of identity, having an identity.
Yeah, it's more than identity. It's power. It's power. If you really grasp what it means to be a son of God, it's power. And right now I feel so infused right now. Just thinking about sonship just fills my spirit.
Well, it's also interesting to see a woman talk about sonship, because in today's day and age, we get all caught up on titles and stuff, but you really understand what sonship means in its whole design, in intelligent design. Yeah.
It's not gender related. It's not gender. That's something that's unique to our planet. When we leave here, we're not worried about gender up there, but there is a recessive, aggressive kind of a differentiation. But getting caught up in gender in a spiritual context, it's like apples and oranges. It's really apples and oranges. I'm very proud to be a son of God. You might be something neutral, but I'm a son. Say what? I'm a son. I'm cool with that.
Well, you're cool, son.
Thank you.
You're cool. Yeah, man, it's been so fun hanging out and talking with you. Thank you so much for joining us. And I pray to the Father that you continue in good spirits and good health in your work and your ministry, and may you get all the wisdom, strength, and spiritual guidance you need to take you forward all the way. Thank
you so much, and I pray the same for you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing. and hopefully you'll come back and we can study and we can share more.
Whenever.
All right. You rock. Thanks again. Thanks you guys for joining us. It was awesome getting to know Jeanette. Stick around, and we've got awesome new guests coming up.